Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Black Remembering podcast, where we highlight the heavy and the hope. As y'all know, tax season is upon us. And I don't know about y'all, but tax season and all things tax related brings up a lot of complex feelings for me. I don't understand taxes, and most of my loved ones don't understand them either. There seems to be a barrier of knowledge that isn't offered in schools. So for the next few months, we'd like to offer our listeners with the Tea on Taxes series, where we plan to demystify taxes by having honest conversations. The Tea on Taxes series focuses on these honest conversations with community members about their relationship with finances, economics, and taxes, followed by conversations and info sessions from Black tax experts who are kind enough to offer their knowledge to our audience. This episode of the Tea on Taxes series is more of a community listening session. It is our second of at least three, and we will hear the voices of one or two speakers who will remain anonymous. So thank you, speaker, for joining.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
When I say the term taxes, what words, thoughts, visions, or phrases come to mind?
First and foremost, government, then ripoff, and then just feelings of anxiety and sadness for different reasons.
Would you mind going into those different reasons?
Okay, so I've honestly not filed my taxes in about 3 or 4 years, and it really happened by accident. The first year that I didn't end up submitting my taxes, I actually filed them. Like, I still have the envelope ready to mail, but there were a bunch of weird stuff because I had like a regular W-2, but then also I had like a form for like the unemployment insurance that I was getting, and then one of my jobs, I was technically like a self-contractor, so doing all of that on my own after I got all the taxes and stuff figured out, I ended up owing money. And that was very discouraging because I did everything I possibly could, like within a year, to not owe as much money as I was gonna owe. But somewhere along the way, I got screwed up because I was navigating everything by myself, and I just never ended up sending those taxes in. And then the next year, I didn't do them because I didn't send the first ones in. And now I'm at a point where I'm going to schedule like with a professional and get all of it done. But I'm just so anxious because it's been so long. And they were sending me letters saying that I owe money and stuff like that. And I haven't really done anything with that. And I just don't want the IRS to catch up with me and ruin my life. Because my parents' taxes ended up getting messed up between my junior and senior year of high school. And it kind of low key, I wouldn't say ruin our lives because everything happens for a reason, but there are like very big ramifications and drawbacks behind it to where they were paying for it for years and years to come. And I think they really just got over it. And I think that's only because they were separated. And then sadness because I should have been sent those taxes in. And also because I just always feel like I never get back what I'm supposed to get back based on what I put in. And I don't know if that's because I'm a single household or I have no idea. I'm just very disappointed about the whole process. And I don't know. I just feel like if I'm paying taxes steadily out of every paycheck to where like they take a lot of taxes out of my paycheck. Maybe like I want to say 300 to 400 every check, just depending on how much I make. For me to do that and still owe money in the end is just very disheartening.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it was in college where one of my parents' taxes got messed up, and the college I was at was threatening to kick me out essentially, and it wasn't anything that my parent did maliciously or intentionally. It was just the lack of knowledge and the lack of transparency when it comes to taxes, and I think that's kind of when fear started on my end. And I also think there's this fear, right? Like this looming threat, and then there's also the lack of knowledge and the lack of transparency, and that doesn't add up to me. Like, how are we and why are we scared, and why are we expected to know something that isn't made readily available? We're not taught this stuff in school. We're
Yeah.
not, like, not in high school, not in college. Not You have to go and seek that. Thank you for sharing that. So what were you taught about taxes growing up?
I honestly wasn't taught anything. I guess when I got my first job, I got the, tax papers that they give you during orientation. And what was my first job? I think it was McDonald's, the first job I filled out tax papers for. And they were like, you can put 0 or 1 and then just give it back to us. And I think I ended up having to, I think I talked to my mom about it. And she basically said, if you put 1, they'll take less taxes out your paycheck, but they'll take more taxes in the end when you do your taxes. But if you put 0, they'll take like a lot more out of your check on a normal basis, but you shouldn't owe as many taxes, if anything, when you file your taxes. And that was literally the extent of what I learned about the taxes. Anything else, like the self contractor, things like that, I just learned whatever I googled when I was trying to do those taxes, and it was all just very confusing. And I just tried to learn what I needed to learn to get through the taxes on TurboTax. But outside of that, I don't know too much about what goes into it or anything like that. I just know they take money from my paycheck to go to help the government, but we're still in debt. Nothing's changed. I don't see any of those benefits. And then I do my taxes, and then they take more money from me, and then the cycle just repeats.
What was the mood around tax season in your household growing up?
For the most part, it was pretty good because both of my parents, for the longest time, they were working. And when tax season came around, we knew, like, things are going to get a little bit better. My parents are able to do a little bit more of the things they weren't able to do. I got a new coat, shoes, got, some spending money, some of the things, that I wanted on my own. It didn't really change or turn sour until I can't even remember what happened, what it was that messed my parents' taxes up. But after that point, then it was just a period of, I guess, anxiety for me, because that was around the time that I started going to college, and whatever mistake they made on the taxes made it seem like we brought in way more money than what we brought in, to where I was worried about being, Pell eligible and getting grants and scholarships and things that I needed, because we were poor and I couldn't really afford college. But on paper, according to the taxes, like, I wasn't even in the bracket to receive any assistance.
In previous conversations, listening sessions, there was a mention of the shift that you mentioned, like a period of almost celebration, almost relief. Like, you got what you needed, got the necessities. Essentially, it was almost like a second Christmas, but like more need based. And
Mm-hmm.
then at one point, it shifted to worry and anxiety. If you could ask a tax expert one question about taxes, what would it be?
It would probably be around like city and state taxes, because I typically end up owing those, and it's just frustrating and confusing because I pay city and state taxes out of my paycheck. But a lot of the times, except for this job that I have now currently, I worked outside of my city limits, to where I lived in the inner city, but I worked in the suburbs. So when I got paid, my city taxes were coming out for the suburb that I worked in, and then I pay my not pay, I file my taxes, and then I have to pay city taxes for the city that I live in, and I just don't understand why I have to do the two. I understand owing city taxes, but I just feel like if I'm paying city taxes for another city where I work in, and I don't work in the city I live in, why am I paying both? Like, why can't my city taxes come out from where I live out of my paycheck? You know, if the money's being taken anyway and given to the government, like I just never understood why that worked like that. But also, I don't know if the answer that a tax expert would give me would satisfy the actual question that I have, if that makes sense.
It does. I feel like it's more of a systemic question.
I guess more a tax expert question would be like, I guess really how to file with forms that aren't the standard W-2. Because I guess that's what I had the most difficulty with when I was using it. I don't use them now because I'm not an independent contractor or anything like that. I'm not getting unemployment anymore. It's just a straight W-2. But just, I guess, my future self would wonder that, because I also doing my taxes on my own, trying to save money that I don't have. I also felt like because it wasn't the standard W-2, like it's so easy for me to make a mistake, and a detrimental mistake at that, that I have no idea that I'm doing. So I guess maybe just more clarity about the differences and how to file and how to file correctly.
Thank you. Okay, next question. What barriers do you think exist when it comes to education around taxes?
I feel like everything costs money. Like, I don't, there are probably some free resources out there, but I feel like they're pretty basic, or they're not very well known. So there's a lot of uncertainty going into doing them, especially if you're not accustomed to that being a, I guess, important topic in a home. Like, I knew what tax season was, but I never learned anything about what went into my parents filing their taxes, whether separate or filing together jointly as a married couple. It was just, oh, I know they're waiting for tax papers in the mail. And then I know they told me they going out for an appointment with my aunt because she works for one of those companies. And then they come back, and my mom would tell me, or they would both tell me, how much I would be getting out of that, if they would be able to give me anything, or, what I would be getting out of that. But other than that, it was never really a conversation. And then once I became an adult, it was never really a conversation either. It was just an assumption, like, okay, yeah, file your taxes. And like, even if I had questions, maybe like a few aunts on my dad's side, they would be able to help me. But for the most part, like, people were just as, I guess, blind or clueless as I was. Because I know, with my parents, I will say the mistake that was made with their taxes mostly fell on my dad and some things that he did, which he didn't do on purpose. But like, even like the way that it affected my mom, even though she wasn't really a part of it because she was married to him, it was like basically 50-50. And she just didn't know anything about it either. Like, she just kept learning new stuff, and I would learn a little bit from what she learned, but I still never really had a conversation. Like, even in college, I took, like, those first gen help you transition to college type course or program. That wasn't discussed there either. And at the time, I never really thought that that was something that I should ask for help on, if that makes sense. You asked about, adjusting and being away from home and adjusting to college workload and things like that. But taxes was never really nothing that crossed my mind until tax season came, and I filed them. And I was like, okay, is this it? Am I really doing it right? To this day, I still don't have confirmation I did it right, because, just TurboTax, self-help type things, doing it by yourself, trying to save money because, like I said, everything costs money to have a tax preparer go over the documents the way you need to, or make sure that you're not messing up. Like, and then on top of that, it costs to file. And then on top of that, if you have somebody else do it, then you have to pay them a percentage of, I guess, whatever return you're gonna get. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, I guess it doesn't make sense to have it be so expensive, and it's like literally taxes and money. I never really understood that, and that was always a barrier for me. Like, I could never really get the help that I needed because it was always so expensive. Like, I don't have $100 to give you to file my taxes, and then 30% of my taxes to give to you because I need that. Like,
Exactly. I think you hit it right on the nose when you said assumptions. My money and assumptions, but the assumption that when you're in high school, somebody will teach you. Like, teachers assume maybe somebody at home is teaching you, and then when you get to college, you should know. Like, there's the assumption that you should already know, and then you graduate and you go start your career and all these things. At every single stage, somebody is assuming that somebody taught you or that you have this knowledge already,
yeah,
and that doesn't make sense. That does not make any sense. But I've
literally.
spoken with a tax expert, and she dropped the term on me that I had never heard before, was tax planning. And she's like, she'll have non-black clients come in and they'll be like, this is exactly what I want to do. Let's discuss my tax plan. Let's do this and that. And they have the language for it, and they have the prior knowledge behind it. And it's like, why is that information being gatekept?
Yeah,
Largely because we're speaking to people from Kentucky, we're speaking to people from North Carolina, from Ohio, from Maryland. Like, this information isn't just, it's not just one community in one area that doesn't have this information. It's widespread, and it doesn't make sense. And thank you for sharing that. So what do you wish the conversation around taxes looked like or sounded like or included?
I guess I wish that it was a bigger emphasis on it from the very beginning, like embedded into society. I feel like everything about taxes is so secretive, like even from one person to the next. I don't know. I feel like nobody files the same. And then, like, if somebody like figures something out or figures out a way to, I don't want to say hack because I don't want to insinuate that it's not like legal, but just something helpful or useful. Like, instead of, trying to push it out, make sure everybody knows, everybody benefits. It's just like, oh no, I'm just gonna, keep it to myself. I'm not really gonna say anything. And then on top of that, like, I feel like it should be a bigger part of, I guess, like, curriculum. Like, I don't think it's anything to have to add, how you have a year of health classes, one is physical and then one you're just learning, or just like life skills to get you ready for life after high school or something like that. Like, I just wish that there was something like that to go in depth about taxes before it gets to the point where you have to fill out taxes yourself. Like, just like we had sex ed, or I can't even say home ed because a lot of useful things have been taken out of the schools, which is something that's a totally different conversation. Um, but yeah, I just wish things were more in the open, or even resources were more accessible. Because what's a resource if it's not accessible? It's not really a resource. It's more like, I guess, a badge of wealth, honestly. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that the only people who know about taxes are wealthy, more privileged people, especially with how big of a deal taxes are. Like, with as secretive as it is, it's also super serious. Like, people do time behind taxes, like normal people, everyday people making simple mistakes, which also goes back to the little bit of anxiety that I have when it comes to me thinking about my taxes, because being the demographic that I am, the minority that I am, like, they are way harder on us than they are on the people who know anything about what they're doing. So all of those together, I guess, would be things that I would change about the topic of your question that I cannot repeat back to you right now.
Thank you. What do you think the world of taxes is going to look like in the future?
It's probably very grim, but I just feel like it's gonna keep getting harder. for lower economic class members and minority members, POC, and easier for the people who don't really need it to get any easier for them, i.e., the very, very small, very, very wealthy percentage of America that seems to be running everything nowadays. I really don't see any hope when it comes to the normal working everyday person. I honestly feel like we're going to continue to put this money into things that don't benefit us. Social Security, for example, we're paying taxes on Social Security. I know that doesn't have anything to do with personal taxes, but I feel like once I get to the age to actually use Social Security, there won't be any left. And I would have spent 30 years of my life paying into something that does not benefit me. And that's kind of where I see taxes going. It's going to continue to benefit the wealthy, and it's going to diminish any benefits for normal working class citizens, even less than it already is right now.
Considering your former relationship with taxes and your current relationship with taxes, what are your hopes for your relationship with all things taxes, finances, economics in the future?
So, my honest hope is that once I get my little past thing taken care of and can feel okay with taxes, filing, all that stuff, that things just stay simple so I don't ever have to think about it again. I'm just really recovering from those more uncommon forms of tax papers. And I hope I never have to deal with those ever again in life. I know that's probably a cop out, but I just want to get to the point where I can just get a W 2, file the taxes, and not have to worry about anything else. It's been a very long few years of feeling like this.
Yeah. I think it might have been last year, or the year before. I had no idea that, if you have a side job or a second job or freelance, that you had to automatically determine how much you wanted taken out of that. I assumed it was automatic, like W-2s. And even that small assumption and slip up set me back for the rest of that year because I'm paying off thousands of dollars at the beginning of a year, and I don't have that. So, just echoing the transparency. And I have one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, based on our conversation today, what is one thought or piece of information you're going to take with you?
One, the research you gave me, because outside of the major, tax companies, Turbo, H&R, I just felt like I was like drowning with no help, nobody who would understand or be sympathetic if I didn't have a dollar. And two, I'm going to take the term that you introduced, tax planning, because I've never heard it a day in my life before you just told me today, and figure out what it is and use it to my benefit.
But the day that the person told me about it was the day that I heard about it for the first time as well. So I won't shut up about it now. Well, thank you so much, anonymous speaker, for coming onto the podcast and having this conversation. It's not a comfortable one. It's not one that many folks are willing to have it. So I really do appreciate you. We are going to hear from some tax experts later on in the Tea on Taxes series, so please tune in for more information and advice on demystifying taxes, and go ahead and share this good news with your community. Until next time, peace and blessings, y'all.